All right, so as you can see, it was quite a big confrontation in Kisumu. I now want to bring in my colleague Timothy Otieno, who's going to be telling us what really has been happening in Homa Bay. Remember that Homa Bay is one of the counties that was slated to have the election, the repeat presidential poll tomorrow, but that was postponed by the IEBC earlier today. Timothy, good evening. Bring us up to speed with the sort of reactions that you're getting with this postponement, and just explain to us how the day was today.
Well, basically, Betty, in Homa Bay County, the day was just similar to that witnessed in the other three counties of Luo Nyanza, that is Kisumu, Siaya, as well as Migori, where protesters and police continued to clash. Perhaps in Homa Bay, the approach was a little bit different. It was like maybe what you describe as a well-orchestrated choir, where one part of town would begin with the violent protests, and then the other part of town would be silent, and this part of town, when it became silent, the other part, the violence continued, or rather the protests continued. So that has been on and off throughout the day, but the basic message from the residents of Homa Bay County is the same, that even if the IEBC chair was to call the elections today, tonight, tomorrow, next week, next year, they would not go to the ballot unless they get that directive from the NASA leader that it was a green light and that the electoral reforms that the opposition has been pushing for had finally borne fruit. So for the residents, the message is the same, like those in Siaya, Kisumu, and Migori. Now, there has, today at least, there has been no record of any serious injuries within this particular county, at least none that we can confirm. But of course, the ongoing back and forth between protesters and police was very evident throughout the day. Betty, as late as this evening, we were able to spot at least 7 truckloads of police officers who are making various patrols within Homa Bay County, and particularly in Homa Bay Town constituency where we are tonight, Betty. And of course, those truckloads of police trying to ensure that throughout the night there might be a little bit of peace. Just a few minutes ago, before we went on air, we've been able to hear sounds of gunfire. We've been able to count at least 3 sounds of gunfire this evening, late this evening, even as perhaps the residents continue to take to the streets, barricading the roads, and of course insisting that electoral reforms need to take place before any ballot is cast within this vast county, Betty.
All right, team, earlier on, and I asked the same to Ben Kitili in Migori and Duncan Haemba in Siaya. I mean, earlier on, we had the NASA leaders coming out and calling for the protesters not to engage the police, because at the end of the day, they are the ones who actually get injured, get shot, get maimed. So really, have they heeded to this call? Because both in Migori and Siaya, this did not happen. As much as the leaders came out and said, keep off the streets, keep off engaging with the police, they still went ahead and went for the jugular. So what happened in Homa Bay?
Well, the tone of the residents and the message that they're trying to send out is basically the same. They were out on the street, and Betty, perhaps what we've been able to try and digest and understand from the residents here is their apprehension and fear that if they don't leave their homes, if they don't go to the roads, if they don't go to the streets, then the fear for them is that the IEBC may be able to what they term as sneak in. Of course, they're supposed to bring the election material into this county because of that repeat poll that has since been suspended. But for them, they feel that if they stay at home, the IEBC might try and bring that material, and perhaps there may be a few residents who may go out and cast the ballot. So for the residents here, I believe what they're trying to do is ensure that this entire county, not even a single vote goes out from this county to be added to the tally that took place yesterday during the October the 26th general election. And that is the reason, especially from those whom we spoke to, they believe that being out on the streets was some sort of like trying to keep guard of the polling stations and ensuring no material, no electoral officials stepped into any polling station within this particular county to try and show or prove that Homa Bay County actually did participate in yesterday's election. And they have kept to the streets, and perhaps maybe tomorrow we might see a little bit of the same, consider even despite the fact that the IEBC chair Wafula Chebukati has since suspended the elections that were supposed to take place tomorrow, Betty.
All right, finally, Timothy, maybe briefly, you've said that, today we've not had a number of injuries as it has been for the last couple of days. Is it that the police are exercising some sort of restraint, because it's not really the same story in the other 3 counties?
Well, for today, at least what we were able to see, Betty, the police, to some extent, kept off. They let the protesters be. They did not interfere with them so much, despite the fact that the residents did come out. They were burning tires in the middle of the roads. Most of the roads leading into and out of Homa Bay town have since been barricaded. They have been barricaded since 2 days ago. But the different strategy that we're seeing from the police today is that they really kept a hands-off approach. Now, once in a while, they would come in to try and clear sections of the road, but that effort may have resulted in futility, because once the police left that particular area, the residents would go back and continue barricading that road, either with the stones, with the tires. We've seen even fences, we've seen even shops dragged into the middle of the road. It was even a challenge for us to maneuver our way around the county, because we had to try and convince them to sometimes open for us the roads, and some roads were actually basically impassable. In fact, there's actually one road, Betty, that they welded an electric pole from one end to the other, welded by, I don't know where they got those materials, but that road is basically impassable at the moment. So the police exercised a lot of patience with them, if I could call it that. But later on, moving into the evening, the presence of police increased. Like I'd mentioned, we saw at least 7 truckloads of them heading into town to try and survey and ensure that peace prevails.